The culture of Vietnam is highly multicultural. The early culture in Vietnam started with the Bronze Age Dong Son culture, considered to be one of its most important progenitors for its ancient history. Vietnamese culture was heavily influenced by Chinese culture due to the 1,000 years of northern rule. In this period of time, Vietnamese was written with Chu Han, a Chinese script, and afterward a Vietnamese script, Chu Nam, that was based on Chinese, but which included invented characters to represent native Vietnamese words. This large impact on Vietnamese culture means that Vietnam is often considered to be part of the East Asian cultural sphere, with China, South Korea, North Korea, and Japan. Following independence from China in the 10th century, Vietnam began a southward expansion, resulting in various influences on the Vietnamese. During the French colonial period, Catholicism and a Latin alphabet, the Vietnamese alphabet, called Chu Quoc Ngo, National Language Script, or Tieng Viet Latin, Latin Vietnamese, Romanizing the Vietnamese language, was introduced in Vietnam. Some elements considered to be characteristic of Vietnamese culture include ancestor veneration, respect for community and family, manual labor, and living in harmony with nature.
Language. Vietnam is one of the most linguistic, diverse countries in Southeast Asia. Although Vietnamese is set as the official language of Vietnam, there are currently more than 100 speaking languages in the country. They belong to 5 different major linguistic families: Austronesian, Austroasiatic, Hmong Mien, Sino-Tibetan, and Kra Dai. The Vietnamese language is an Austroasiatic language with monosyllabic and tonal features, sharing similarities with some Northern Austroasiatic languages. The writing of Vietnamese started with Vietnamese script, Chu Nam, in the 13th century, which used Chinese script as a basis, to the current Latin iteration, Chu Quoc Ngo. The current Vietnamese alphabet uses diacritics, glyph added to a letter, to represent tones in Vietnamese writing. When computerized, digraphs are used. For example, input A generates A, but input A generates A. The Vietnamese Latin alphabet uses the horn for the letters O and U, the circumflex for the letters A, E, and O, the breve for the letter A, and a bar through the letter D. It also has 6 tones: A, A, and A, the 5 tones used for vowels along with flat tona.
Literature. The first evidence of writing in Vietnam appeared after the Han conquest of Nan Yu, 111 BC, with the introducing of Old Chinese and Classical Chinese in modern-day North and Central Vietnam. They, however, only had been materialized in form of fragments, short sentences engraved on bricks and coins. The first surviving literature in Vietnam is the Sanskrit Vo Can inscription, 4th century AD, near Nha Trang, which belongs to either Funan or Chamite culture. Following Vo Can is the old Cham Dong Yen Chao inscription near Tra Keo, dating from late 4th century, was erected by King Badravarman I of Kampa, and was written in Old Southern Brahmic script. It remains today as the oldest attested epigraph of any Southeast Asian language, predating Mon, Khmer, Malay by centuries. Historically, Vietnamese literature was initially written in Chu Han and then Chu Nam. Literature using Nam script began roughly in the 10th century. Up until the 21st century, there had been 2 components existing at the same time: works written in literary Chinese, with poems and prose demonstrating Vietnamese history and realities. Thus, they are regarded as Vietnamese literature, and works written in Nam script, mostly poems. Since the 1920s, literature has been mainly composed in the national language, Latin alphabet, with profound renovations in form and category such as novels, new-style poems, short stories and dramas, and with diversity in artistic tendency. Written literature attained speedy development after the August Revolution, when it was directed by the Vietnamese Communist Party's guideline and focused on the people's fighting and work life. Classical literature include Trien Kyo, The Tale of Kyo, Nguyen Du, Kung On Gam Kuk, Complaint of a Palace Maid, Nguyen Jia Thieu, Chin Phoon Gam, Lament of the Soldier's Wife, Dang Tran Con, and Quoc Mt Tap, poetry collection, Nguyen Tre, all of which are translated or annotated in Chu Quoc Ngu. Some famous female poets include Ho Xuan Hung, Don T Diem, and Ba Huynh Ton Quan. Modern Vietnamese literature has developed from romanticism to realism, from heroism in wartime to all aspects of life, and developed into ordinary life of the Vietnamese.
Poetry. Vietnam has had a diverse range of cultural poetry throughout its history. Historically, Vietnamese poetry consists of 3 language traditions. Each poetry was written exclusively in classical Chinese and later incorporated Sino-Vietnamese vocabulary. It was also often centered around the themes and traditions of Buddhism and Confucianism. This style of poetry remained prominent until the 13th century. Thereafter, poetry and literature in the Vietnamese language emerged as the primary rival to literature written in the classical Chinese language. The Chu Nam writing system for the Vietnamese language was adapted for Vietnamese poetry. This writing system was also sanctioned by the Vietnamese government and recognized as the primary language of the nation. It remained as the main writing system for Vietnamese poetry until the end of the 20th century. However, this was changed upon the advent of European rule from the introduction of the Romanized script, known as Quoc Ngu. As a result, the precise meaning of Vietnamese poems in Han Nam may have gotten lost in the translation process to Chu Quoc Ngu.
Visual arts. Traditional Vietnamese art is a part of art practiced in Vietnam or by Vietnamese artists from ancient times, including the elaborate Dong Sun drums, to post-Chinese domination art, which was strongly influenced by Chinese Buddhist art, as well as Taoism and Confucianism. The art of Compa in France also played a smaller role later on. The Chinese arts' influence on Vietnamese art extends into Vietnamese pottery and ceramics, calligraphy, and traditional architecture. Currently, Vietnamese lacquer paintings have proven to be quite popular. Calligraphy. Calligraphy has had a long history in Vietnam, previously using Chu Han along with Chu Nam. However, most modern Vietnamese calligraphy instead uses the Roman character-based Quoc Ngu, which has proven to be very popular. In the past, when literacy in the old character-based writing systems were restricted to Vietnamese scholars, calligraphy nevertheless still played an important part in Vietnamese life. On special occasions such as Lunar New Year, people would go to the village teacher or scholar to make them a calligraphy hanging, often poetry, folk sayings, or even single words. People who could not read or write also often commissioned at temple shrines. Silk painting. Vietnamese silk painting is one of the most popular forms of art in Vietnam, favored for the mystical atmosphere that can be achieved with the medium. During the 19th and 20th centuries, French influence was absorbed into Vietnamese art, and the liberal and modern use of color especially began to differentiate Vietnamese silk paintings from their Chinese, Japanese and Korean counterparts. Vietnamese silk paintings typically showcase the countryside, landscapes, pagodas, historical events or scenes of daily life. Woodblock prints. A folk art with a long history in Vietnam, Vietnamese woodblock prints have reached a level of popularity outside of Vietnam. Organic materials are used to make the paint, which is applied to wood and pressed on paper. The process is repeated with different colors.
Performing arts. Music. Vietnamese music varies slightly in the 3 regions, Bac or North, Trung or Central, and Nam or South. Northern classical music is Vietnam's oldest and is traditionally more formal. Central classical music shows the influences of Zampa culture with its melancholic melodies. Southern music exudes a lively laissez-faire attitude. Vietnam has some 50 national music instruments, in which the set of percussion instruments is the most popular, diverse and long-lasting, such as Dan Dai, Dan Tran, Dan Ni, Dan Bao. The set of blowing instruments is represented by flutes and panpipes, while the set of string instruments is specified by Dan Bao and Dan Dai. Vietnamese folk songs are rich in forms and melodies of regions across the country, ranging from Gam Tho, reciting poems, Hot Are You, lullaby, Hor, shanty, to Hot Quan Hor, Trong Quan, Zone, Dum, Sixth Sam, Ka Hu, by Choi, Ly. Apart from this, there are also other forms like Hot Xam, Zao Van, and Ka Tru. Two of the most well-known Vietnamese traditional genres are Imperial court music. When referring specifically to the Na Nac form, it includes court music from the Tran dynasty on to the Nguyen dynasty. It is an elaborate form of music which features an extensive array of musicians and dancers, dressed in extravagant costumes. It was an integral part of the rituals of the imperial court. Ka Tru, an ancient form of chamber music which originated in the imperial court. It gradually came to be associated with a geisha type of entertainment where talented female musicians entertained rich and powerful men, often scholars and bureaucrats who most enjoyed the genre. It was condemned in the 20th century by the government, being tied falsely with prostitution, but recently it has seen a revival as appreciation for its cultural significance has grown. Ka Tru has been recognized by UNESCO as a masterpiece of the oral and intangible heritage of humanity since 2005. In the 20th century, in contact with the Western culture, especially after national independence, many new categories of arts like plays, photography, cinemas, and modern art had taken shape and developed strongly, obtaining huge achievements with the contents reflecting the social and revolutionary realities. Up to 1997, there have been 44 people operating in cultural and artistic fields honored with the Ho Chi Minh Award, 130 others conferred with People's Artist Honor, and 1,011 people awarded with the Excellent Artist Honor. At the start of 1997, there were 191 professional artistic organizations and 26 film studios, including central and local ones. There have been 28 movies, 49 scientific and documentary films receiving International Motion Picture Awards in many countries.
Theater. Hat Tuong, also known as Hat Boi, traditional Vietnamese opera, a theater form influenced by Chinese opera, it transitioned from being entertainment for the royal court to traveling troupes who performed for commoners and peasants, featuring many well-known stock characters. Kai Luong, a kind of modern folk opera originating from South Vietnam, which utilizes extensive vibrato techniques. It remains very popular in modern Vietnam when compared to other folk styles. Ha Chio. Chio is a form of generally satirical musical theater, often encompassing dance, traditionally performed by Vietnamese peasants in North Vietnam. It is usually performed outdoors by semi-amateur touring groups, stereotypically in a village square or the courtyard of a public building, although it is today increasingly also performed indoors and by professional performers. Water puppetry. Water puppetry, Mua Roi Nuoc, is a distinct Vietnamese art form which had its origins in the 10th century and very popular in northern region. In water puppetry, a split bamboo screen obscures puppets which stand in water and are manipulated using long poles hidden beneath the water. Epic storylines are played out with many different puppets, often using traditional scenes of Vietnamese life. The puppets are made from quality wood, such as the Southeast Asian jackfruit tree. Each puppet is carefully carved and then painted with numerous successive layers of paint in order to protect the puppets. Despite nearly dying out in the 20th century, water puppetry has been recognized by the Vietnamese government as an important part of Vietnam's cultural heritage. Today, puppetry is commonly performed by professional puppeteers, who typically are taught by their elders in rural areas of Vietnam. Dance. Vietnam also has 54 different ethnicities, each with their own tradition. Among the ethnic Vietnamese majority, there are several traditional dances performed widely at festivals and other special occasions, such as the Lion Dance. In the imperial court, there also developed throughout the centuries a series of complex court dances which require great skill. Some of the more widely known are the Imperial Lantern Dance, Fan Dance, and Platter Dance, among others.
Cuisine. Vietnamese cuisine is extremely diverse, often divided into three main categories, each pertaining to Vietnam's three main regions, North, Central, and South. It uses very little oil and many vegetables, and is mainly based on rice, fish sauce, and soy sauce. Its characteristic flavors are sweet, sugar, spicy, bird's eye chili, sour, lime, nuoc mam, fish sauce, and flavored by a variety of mint and basil. Vietnam also has a large variety of noodles and noodle soups. Different regions invented typically different types of noodles, varying in shapes, tastes, colors, etc. One of the nation's most famous type of noodles is pho, pronounced pho, a type of noodle soup originating in North Vietnam, which consists of rice noodles and beef soup, sometimes chicken soup, with several other ingredients such as bean sprouts and scallions, spring onions. It is often eaten for breakfast, but also makes a satisfying lunch or light dinner. The boiling stock, fragrant with spices and sauces, is poured over the noodles and vegetables, poaching the paper-thin slices of raw beef just before serving. Pho is meant to be savored, incorporating several different flavors, the sweet flavor of beef, sour lemons, salty fish sauce, and fresh vegetables.
Religion and philosophy. Besides folk religion, religion in Vietnam has historically been a mix of Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, known in Vietnamese as the Tam Giao, the three religions. Recently, scholars have provided empirical evidence on the existence of the socio-cultural phenomenon called cultural additivity in Vietnamese history and society. Catholicism is also practiced in modern Vietnam. Ancestor worship and filial piety is commonly practiced amongst the older generation of Vietnamese. Most Vietnamese, regardless of religious denomination, practice ancestor worship and have an ancestor altar at their home or business.
Funeral ceremony. Wake. When a death occurs in a Vietnamese household, the family members of the deceased would hold a wake ceremony or vigil that typically lasts for approximately 5 to 6 days. However, the duration of the ceremony may extend if the family is expecting the arrival of relatives residing abroad. The body is washed and dressed. A loon gam ham, or chopstick, is laid between the teeth and a pinch of rice and 3 coins are placed in the mouth. The body is put on a grass mat laid on the ground according to the saying, being born from the earth, one must return to the earth. The dead body is enveloped with white cloth, lu cam neem, and placed in a coffin, lu nap quan. Finally, the funeral ceremony, lu ton phuc, is officially performed. Funeral. The surviving family wear coarse gauze turbans and tunics for the funeral. There are 2 types of funeral processions. Traditional, the date and time for the funeral procession, lu dua tang, must be carefully selected. Relatives, friends, and descendants take part in the funeral procession to accompany the dead along the way to the burial ground. Votives are dropped along the way. At the grave site, the coffin is lowered and buried. After 3 days of mourning, the family visits the tomb again, luemo qua ma, or worship the opening of the grave. After 49 days, lu chung that, the family stops bringing rice for the dead to the altar. And finally, after 100 days, the family celebrates Tok Kok, or the end of the tears. After 1 year is the ceremony of the first anniversary of the relative's death, and after 2 years is the ceremony of the end of mourning. Nowadays, mourning ceremonies follow new rituals which are simplified. They consist of covering and putting the dead body into the coffin, the funeral procession, the burial of the CK into the grave, and the visits to the tomb.
Traditional clothing. In feudal Vietnam, clothing was one of the most important marks of social status, and strict dress codes were enforced. After the Ming conquest of Vietnam, Ming-style clothing was imposed by a Ming official within a month. Due to the previous centuries of conflict between China and Vietnam, Ming administrators said that their mission was to attempt to civilize the unorthodox Vietnamese barbarians, which ironically reduced the amount of Taoist institutions in the process. Prior to the Nguyen dynasty, people not of noble birth could dress quite liberally with only few restrictions on styles. For example, wearing yellow color in the Lai dynasty was tolerable since the imperial clan wore red and white color. However, things changed at the beginning of the Nguyen dynasty. Commoners now had a limited choice of similarly plain and simple clothes for everyday use, as well as being limited in the colors they were allowed to use. For instance, commoners were not allowed to wear clothes with dyes other than black, brown, or white, with the exception of special occasions such as festivals, but in actuality these rules could change, often based upon the whims of the current ruler. The Ao Jiao Lin was a traditional cross-collared robe worn by Vietnamese before the 19th century. During the Nguyen dynasty, it was replaced by the Ao Ngu Then and became obsolete. The Ao Tu Then or four-part dress is one such example of an ancient dress widely worn by commoner women, along with the Ao Yem bodice, which accompanied it. Peasants across the country also gradually came to wear silk pajama-like costumes, known as Ao Ken in the north and Ao Baba in the south. The headgear differed from time to time. People of the Lai dynasty and Nguyen dynasty often put on a plain piece of cloth wrapped around the head, generally called kondong, while in Tran dynasty and Lu dynasty leaving the headwear was more common. Beside the popular non-la conical hat, a vast array of other hats and caps were available, constructed from numerous different types of materials, ranging from silk to bamboo and horsehair. Even the non-la conical hat came in several different shapes and sizes. Now only 2 styles still persist. For footwear, peasants would often go barefoot, whereas sandals and shoes were reserved for the aristocracy and royalty. When monarchs had the exclusive right to wear the color gold, while nobles wore red or purple. In the past the situation was different. Din dynasty and Lai dynasty rulers wore red, and Tran dynasty emperors wore white. Each member of the royal court had an assortment of different formal gowns they would wear at a particular ceremony, or for a particular occasion. The rules governing the fashion of the royal court could change dynasty by dynasty, thus costumes of the Vietnamese court were quite diverse. However, certain fundamental concepts applied. The most popular and widely recognized Vietnamese national costume is the Ao Dai. Ao Dai is worn by both genders, but today it is worn mainly by women, except for certain important traditional culture-related occasions where some men do wear it. Ao Dai consists of a long gown with a slit on both sides, worn over cotton or silk trousers. Adoption and enforcement of Ao Ngu Then, the predecessor of the Ao Dai, took place in the mid-18th century by the rulers of Dang Trong. They decided that their garments had to be distinctive to set themselves apart from the people of Dang Nguyen, where Ao Jiao Lin and Nu Quan were worn. White Ao Dai is the required uniform for girls in many high schools across Vietnam. In some types of offices, e.g. receptionists, secretaries, tour guides, women are also required to wear Ao Dai. In daily life, the traditional Vietnamese styles are now replaced by Western styles. Traditional clothing is worn instead on special occasions, with the exception of the white Ao Dai commonly seen with high school girls in Vietnam.
Traditional martial arts. Vietnamese martial arts are highly developed from the country's long history of warfare and attempts to defend itself from foreign occupation. Although most heavily influenced by Chinese martial arts, they have developed their own characteristics throughout the millennia in combination with other influences from their neighbors. Vietnamese martial arts are deeply spiritual due to the influence of Confucianism, Buddhism and Taoism, and are strongly reliant on the Viet Vo Dao philosophy of Vietnamese martial arts. The general Vietnamese term for martial arts is Vo Thuet. Some of the more popular include Vo Co Tri in Vietnam, Vo Thuet Co Tri in Vietnam, Vo Vinam Viet Vo Dao, Vo Thuet Van Vo Dao, Vo Thuet Ben Din, Vo Bac Ninh, Vo Nam Huen Dao, Master Nam Huen Dao. Vietnamese martial arts remain relatively unknown in the world today when compared to their counterparts from China, Japan, Korea, or Thailand. However, this is seeing a definite change as schools teaching various styles of Vietnamese martial arts are starting to pop up all over the world, notably in countries such as Spain.
Traditional kinship. In traditional Vietnamese culture, kinship plays an important role in Vietnam. Whilst Western culture is known for its emphasis on individualism, Vietnamese culture places value on the roles of family. In current rural Vietnam, one can still see 3 or 4 generations living under one roof.
Pre-Siticization Nang Nam Viet. Prior to Han Chinese migration from the north, the Viet tribes cultivated wet rice, practiced fishing and slash-and-burn agriculture, domesticated water buffalo, built stilt houses, tattooed their faces, and dominated the coastal regions from shores all the way to the fertile valleys in the interior mountains. They also practiced teeth blackening. Water transport was paramount in the south, so the Viet became advanced in shipbuilding and developed maritime warfare technology mapping trade routes to eastern coasts of China and Southeast Asia. The ancient Han Chinese referred to the various tribal groups of people living in southern China and northern Vietnam as the Bayou people, 100 Viet tribes, a group that existed from 1000 BC to 1000 AD, saying that they possessed habits like adapting to water, having their hair cropped short, and possessing body tattoos. The ancient northern Yu are considered one of the progenitor groups of modern Lingnan culture, Cantonese culture, while the southern Yu people are considered one of the progenitor groups of modern Vietnamese culture. Ancient Han Chinese had described ancient Yu people occupying Nan Yu Nam Viet as barbaric, comparing their language to animal shrieking, and had regarded them as lacking morals and modesty. Ming rule. During the Ming rule of Vietnam after the Ming Ho War, the Vietnamese were ordered to stop grow their hair long, switch to Han Chinese style clothing, and stop the practice of teeth blackening so that they could have white teeth and long hair like the Chinese.
Later cultural relations with neighbors. A royal edict was issued by the Liu dynasty in 1474 forbidding Vietnamese from adopting foreign languages, hairstyles and clothing of the Lao, Compa or the Northerners, which referred to the Ming. The edict was recorded in the 1479 Complete Chronicle of Dai Viet, No Si Lin. According to Nyan Chanda, the Vietnamese had adopted Sinocentric views towards their surrounding neighbors such as the Cams and Cambodians, and considered non-sinospheric cultures as barbaric. David G. Marr noted that a possible reason for social stratification, such as with the Montagnards and the Viet, were that other ethnic groups did not share the same passion for wet rice cultivation as the Vietnamese kin people did. By the Nguyen dynasty, the Vietnamese themselves were ordering Cambodian Khmer to adopt Han culture style by ceasing habits like cropping hair and ordering them to grow it long, besides making them replace skirts with trousers. Han Chinese Ming dynasty refugees numbering 3,000 came to Vietnam at the end of the Ming dynasty. They opposed the Qing dynasty and were fiercely loyal to the Ming dynasty. The Chinese refugees married with local Vietnamese, and their descendants became known as Minh Hung. They did not wear Manchu hairstyle, unlike later Chinese migrants to Vietnam during the Qing dynasty. Both the Lingnan and historical northern Vietnamese cultures are similar in possessing Nanyu and Han Chinese culture.
Holidays and other important days. Vietnam celebrates many holidays, including traditional holidays which have been celebrated in Vietnam for thousands of years, along with modern holidays imported predominantly from Western countries. Among the traditional holidays, the two most important and widely celebrated are the Lunar New Year, Tet, followed by the Mid-Autumn Lantern Festival, Tet Trung Thursday, although the latter has been losing ground in recent years.
World and Intangible Cultural Heritage. Vietnam has a number of UNESCO-listed World Heritage Sites, as well as cultural relics deemed as intangible heritage. These are split into specific categories. Cultural Heritage Sites. Hoi An, an ancient city and trading center. Imperial City of Hue, complex of monuments in the former imperial capital. Mai Son, ancient temple complex of the former Kampa civilization in Quang Nam province. Imperial Citadel of Tang Long, Hanoi Old City. One Pillar Pagoda. The pagoda is a historic Buddhist temple in the central Ba Dinh district, near the Imperial Citadel of Tang Long, Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. Natural Heritage Sites. Pham Na Cave located in Quang Binh province. Ha Long Bay. Dong Van Karst Plateau Geopark. Intangible Cultural Heritage. Na Nac, a form of Vietnamese court music. Kai Luong, Southern Vietnam-styled opera. Space of Gong culture. Ca True. Quan Ho. There are a number of other potential World Heritage Sites, as well as intangible cultural heritage which Vietnam has completed documents on for UNESCO's recognition in the future.